Once again, we are back. The War Report in the place to be. It's Texas A&M week. You know what the deal is. Like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. We are the War Report on Twitter and Instagram. TikTok, TW Report is where you can find us, fellas. Back a little more humble, maybe. Nah, because we knew we was gonna lose. Whatever. How y'all feeling this week, man? Y'all good?
We played last week.
No,
We
actually,
did play last week.
no, actually, we didn't. We
Oh
didn't
man,
play. There was a game, but I don't
I
know if
don't
we actually
remember.
played.
I really don't remember.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you can consider that playing a football game what we did last week, but there was a game that happened, and one team was playing, the other one was just kind of there on the field. So it is
right?
what it is. I don't know that there was a phase of the game that we did not get destroyed last week. So
Yeah, about what
it's
we
pretty.
expected. I'm not gonna lie. Even though it was in an Auburn loss, I'm gonna go ahead and take the time to gloat just a tiny bit on my score prediction. I
Oh
called
man, it
it
was
42 to 17,
yeah
42 to 13.
within 4 points of it being exactly right.
Yeah,
We were
So
even worse than the worst prediction.
right. Yeah, we underwhelmed. Yeah, yeah, we
Couldn't even
underwhelmed.
live up to your expectations.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
But yeah, so we back at it this week, playing Texas A&M. Another tough game, honestly. We'll get more into that game specifically, but let's talk a little bit about some of the other games that we have coming up this week. Let's start with, of course, the games that nobody really cares about. We'll go with the Mediocre Bowl in South Carolina and Kentucky and talk about that one. I am going to start this off, and I'm going to let Caesar kick it off talking about South Carolina and Kentucky. Caesar, how you feeling about that game?
Well, first off, I'm gonna need you to show these two teams a little bit more respect because one of them beat us and the other one we struggled against. So if you're gonna call it the mediocre bowl, um, I don't think you got humbled enough last week, my friend.
Let
Just saying.
let me say again that it's the Mediocre Bowl, and I stand behind that. I don't care what happened in those games previously.
Hey, it takes some people a while to come back down to earth. I get it, but
I didn't say we weren't mediocre, so you're assuming a lot.
Yeah, he
Oh
didn't say we
man.
weren't.
I guess so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna go Kentucky here. I'm just gonna go Kentucky here. I don't know what kind of motivation South Carolina has at this point in the season. Um, yeah, I'm just gonna go Kentucky.
Yeah, I can't say I blame you on that one. B. Will, how you feeling about this game?
South Carolina quit 2 weeks ago, so UK is about to get another win. Not Britain, but Kentucky. You know what? I want to see, and we'll have to talk about this at another point when we talk recruiting later in the month. But Gatewood really might not have been the guy we thought he was. Well, not that we all thought he was the guy. We just wanted him to get a shot to be the guy based on what we knew his skill set could be. So we didn't see him get that shot. And I want to see him against a bad South Carolina team that has mailed it in. I want to see what he can do. I saw him getting some reps. I'm not sure if he's going to be back in there starting or what, but yeah, UK by I can't say a lot because it's still Kentucky, but I don't know, 14 points.
Okay, not bad. Mike G, how you feeling about this one?
Well, 2-7 versus 6-3, right? Like, or 3-6. I'm sorry. So, like, I agree with Brian. Kentucky quit. Like, they're done, right? No, not Kentucky. I'm sorry. South Carolina quit. They're done. So, um, just on morale alone, like, I'm going with Kentucky in this one. I agree with Brian. I mean, we might have to start coming to terms with Gatewood, um, just kind of being what he is. But, um, Malik Willis is a different discussion. So when we
Yeah.
start talking about quarterback developments, and former Auburn quarterbacks that have gone on to other programs, there might be an interesting discussion to be had there. But in terms of this game, both these teams, in an all SEC schedule, we saw a lot from people a lot earlier. There was a lot less time to get your house in order than there would have been in previous seasons. And I thought that it would be a big factor kind of coming into this season, you know, uh, teams like Kentucky, who started off the season in the top. I mean, they were in the top 25, were they not, to start the season? They were top
Kentucky?
25 team to start the season, yeah, and just turned into a whole mess.
Yeah, they were like 20 something when we played them the
because
first
we
game.
had one of like
Yeah, that's correct.
we had the
22 or 23, something like that.
correct. Yeah, we were the marquee matchup for week 1 in all of college football in terms of rankings. And so for them to be where they're at right now, number one, I think underscores how tough the SEC is, and number two, how big a miss everybody had on what Kentucky was capable of. I still think they're a tough out for a lot of teams on any given day, but I'm picking them in this one. South Carolina, I guess they've quit. We'll see what's in store for them in the future, but I believe that their program is turning their eyes towards the future.
Can I ask you guys something?
Yeah.
We talk about Gatewood, right? When was the last time we've had a good passer come from Kentucky under Stoops?
Ooh, Tim Couch? No, under Stoops. Wait, under Stoops.
Under Stoops.
That's not a real thing, I don't think.
I don't think that's a real thing. Yeah.
So my question is this a Gatewood problem, or did he just go to another school that doesn't develop a passing quarterback?
That's fair. That might be fair.
Well, okay, here's the thing. If there was enough tangible evidence that he could be good, somebody else other than Kentucky would have wanted him. They did not. He was on the market. He said, was it week 5, the week after
Florida.
The transfer deadline had passed. The opt-out, the 4-game opt-out, is where you can say I'm redshirting the season.
Right.
And then he still didn't get no burn. The next game after that, he was like, all right, I'm out of here. He had plenty of time up until the early recruiting signing phase to get courted and to go somewhere to start. Malik Willis, he stepped down to a smaller conference and flourished. I think he took the best deal that was available to him on the conference level, on the Power 5 level. And I think that speaks to what his skill set actually is. Even though we thought, hey, you gear the whole offense to this dude and you give him time to be the guy, whether it's good or bad early, and you'll get something better than what we think we could get out of him. And Gus wasn't willing to do that. Kentucky would have to do the same thing. I don't think he has the skill set to be extremely good. I just think he'll get.
Let me ask you this: did you think the same way about Malik Willis?
I thought Malik Willis was going to be like Nick Marshall Jr., but I can't say I was impressed by what I saw on the field with him.
Right. So just for perspective, right? Like I still am of the mindset that we ruin quarterbacks, because coming out of high school, he had offers from us, Alabama, Clemson, Florida State, LSU, Michigan, North Carolina, Ohio State. Joey Gatewood did.
Gatewood, okay.
So a lot of people wanted him before we put our hands on him. Right? Like, I still think Auburn shares a strong responsibility for what he ended up being. And I just think that players take too much of the rap, and organizations don't get enough credit for ruining these players.
So I don't disagree with you about necessary. I don't think it's more so much that Auburn ruined Gatewood. I think Auburn showed he wasn't ready to compete at this level. When he got to Auburn and he couldn't win a starting job there, they were like, oh, maybe he wasn't the kid that we thought, because we're seeing the product that we have on the field in front of him. So if Gatewood can't beat that guy out, what makes me think I can bring him into my program and he can beat out one of the guys that we have on? Kentucky didn't have a quarterback that could actually throw a forward pass for real when old buddy got hurt last year. So they had to go get some insurance behind him. So it's a little different when we're talking about necessarily ruining people. The only thing that necessarily ruined him was that he couldn't come here and win a starting job over Bo Nix, who on the field did not look like a starting caliber quarterback by anybody's stretch of the imagination, despite winning Freshman of the Year. So if anything, that might have ruined something for him. And that probably should have forced Joey Gatewood to say, I'm not going to take this offer at Kentucky because that's not the best situation for me. Even though it keeps me in the SEC, I should probably go to a Group of 5 or some other school the way that Malik Willis did, so he could flourish and maybe work his way back up into another school. I mean, maybe
Right.
even going down to a JUCO. I don't know, but I think Gatewood made a bad decision going to Kentucky, because that's, unless they're going to start running the same kind of thing they ran last year with what's the kid's name, the running back that they had last year
Snell.
at Kentucky. No, it wasn't Schnell. That was the guy that was like a
I know
wide
you're
receiver
talking
or
about.
a
I
running
can't.
back that was playing quarterback for them last year, where they were basically just running a triple option. You know,
Right.
it was Wildcat every play,
I don't
right?
remember the name, but I know what you're talking about though.
Unless they're going to do that with Gatewood, then which worked fairly well for them because their offensive line could block it up well. I just don't know that it was a great decision for him as a quarterback to go to a school that is not known for doing well with quarterbacks. If he
Right.
needed that tutelage,
Right.
but yeah, to your point, that I guess that is ruining him. But I don't know that Gatewood did much to help himself out though.
Yeah, these kids need a lot of guidance, and these are tough decisions that they have to make about
Right.
where to choose to go to school, right? They're trying to make the best decision for themselves, for their futures, for their families, and we're just not doing anybody any favors. And it's not just a quarterback. I mean, there's a long history of that highly recruited guys coming into Auburn and leaving nothing, right? Literally
Right.
nothing. So Gatewood was not. He just needed more help than we had to offer, right?
Right.
And then maybe was a little too, to Ike's point, was a little too overconfident in his ability, and then went to another school that just he needed the help, man. He needed to go to some place where he could get some quarterback tutelage and just understand. It's not really that you didn't get a shot. It's just that nobody's teaching him anything,
Right.
right?
Well,
Like,
and that's part of what we don't like about Gus here is that he doesn't teach people how to play the position. He teaches somebody how to run this offense. And
Right.
you have
Right.
to have all the outstanding tools
System coach.
already built in.
right.
And then he will use those tools to let you run this offense, but he's not going to teach you how to be a better quarterback.
Well, right. I mean, case in point, that's why every good quarterback we've ever had has been the JUCO.
Yeah,
Right.
they have the tools already.
Yeah, largely developed somewhere else and then came into our system with those tools, right? And use those tools to flourish in the system, but they didn't necessarily excel because of the system.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's one of those things where and we only have a half a year sample size, a little over half a year now sample size of what Chad Morris has been able to do with Bo Nix and getting his he's not fundamentally sound yet, right? Like nobody's been teaching. It's 100% clear, and again, I don't want to turn this into a bash Bo Nix session. It's 100% clear though. Prior to this season, no one was teaching Bo how to be fundamentally sound.
Right.
They were teaching him how to
Correct.
play football, right? But like that doesn't teach you the fundamentals of the position, and no one was teaching him that. Chad Morris has started to show him at least how to run, or excuse me, how to read defenses a little bit better. His
Right.
fundamentals are still atrocious. He's still throwing off of his back foot, and he's changing arm angles, which is some of that stuff that you like about him because he's able to do things off platform. But he has to get better at the simple things that will allow all of that great stuff that he can do athletically to mean something. Because otherwise, you're just going to rely on that consistently, and you're always just going to be an okay guy.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, South Carolina, Kentucky. I'm going to go with everybody else here and say Kentucky's going to get the W here. I just don't see South Carolina having any motivation to put up. The pride of these young kids is going to have them playing hard. I just don't know that they have enough continuity right now in that locker room to be able to pull off a victory against a fairly sound team, though not that good in Kentucky.
True.
All right, let's go on to the next game here. Again, Mediocre Bowl 2. Missouri playing Arkansas down in Missouri. I'm going to start with you, Mike, on this one. How are you feeling about this game?
Oh man, listen, Arkansas is a mystery to me,
For sure.
right? Like this Arkansas team it's been a tough out for a lot of teams, including us. I mean, arguably we were a call away from losing that game to them. I know that Felipe Franks is Brian's childhood hero, but he's had an okay season, right? He's thrown for 17 touchdowns versus 4 interceptions so far this season. So he's hardly the problem with Arkansas this season,
That's
right?
fair.
You know, passing, like, the quarterback on the other side is just, like I said, I mean, they've got no production on offense. I mean, I don't really expect much out of this game. I'm going with Arkansas. I think that just some solid quarterback play. Arkansas's got better playmakers. I know the game is on the road. Missouri's 4-3. They haven't looked terrible. But I like Arkansas on this one.
Okay. So Mike has told us about B. Will's childhood fantasy to be Felipe Franks. I'll let him jump in here and talk about this game.
All right, so I was gonna say that I actually expect Missouri to win this game because, believe it or not, they're in the SEC East, so they're playing terrible teams pretty much 60% of the season.
Right.
Mhm.
Teams where they played somebody that wasn't terrible, they got beaten soundly, but they beat LSU soundly, even though LSU's bad, but
Mhm.
we beat LSU, so I mean it's we're on equal footing there. They aren't terrible. Missouri's not terrible. They're all right. And all right, this season puts you in the mix because we've got like two good teams, two all right teams, and then everybody else is trash. Mostly that's how the SEC looks. So it really comes down to how many people Arkansas has healthy. Back when they played Florida, I didn't know it before we watched that game on the broadcast, but they were talking about so many stars were out. And I was like, wow, no wonder they're not playing as competitively as they had played earlier in the year. I'll say if Arkansas is mostly healthy, meaning just 2 to 3 starters out, then they win this game. If not, if they've got 5, 6, 7, 8 guys out, then Missouri can definitely win it. I think it's a competitive game.
But you're picking Missouri to win.
I'm picking Missouri because I think Arkansas is still depleted, but I will check officially. And if it's different, then on the 10 a.m. broadcast Saturday, I'll change my pick around.
Okay, fair enough. I'll give you that one. I'll give you a mully on that one.
Thank you. We got to check the roster. We got to know what the personnel looks like.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. How you feeling about this one, C?
Arkansas is the toughest 3-5 team I've ever seen this year.
Yeah.
They are tough. I mean, and even in the games that they've lost, aside from the Florida game, they've been in the most of the games. I think Florida, and they played Bama already, right?
Who?
Arkansas.
Sure. Arkansas, no.
No, I don't think so. I
They
think
haven't
they're-
played. Okay. But
Have
they've
they
been
not?
they've been in a lot of these games that they have lost. It's not like they've been ran off the field aside from Florida. I think maybe another game, but they've been competitive, and I expect them to actually go in and get a win. It's going to be a close game with Missouri. Missouri's at home. They're kind of tough at home, but I expect Arkansas to pull it out.
Does Arkansas not play Alabama this year?
It's weird, huh?
I'm looking at the schedule right now. They played Missouri, Texas A&M, Ole Miss,
Yeah.
Georgia.
Yeah. They don't have
Tennessee.
Alabama on the schedule.
Wow, how did they do that?
How did that happen?
Yeah.
I guess. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, but you're picking Arkansas. You said.
Yeah, I got Arkansas.
All right. I'm
Gotta
actually
vote.
going to go with B. Will on this one, and I'm going to pick Missouri on this one only because Missouri is at home and they are 3-1 at home this season so far. Arkansas is pretty much the opposite of that on the road. Arkansas has not played as well on the road, or they have not been able to close games out as well on the road. So I am going to pick Missouri to win a close game here. All right. Let's go to. Let's see. What other game do I not care about this week that we can talk about? Yeah, this one's going to be awful.
There you go.
Let's talk about Vanderbilt and Georgia. Do I even need to pause and let anybody pick an upset here? Because if I do, I really want you to be soloed on the screen by yourself so you can tell me why.
Well, all that time we spent talking about Kentucky and Gatewood, we spent
Georgia.
game
Georgia
time.
by a lot.
Yeah, I mean.
Wait. I have a question. Is Vanderbilt the worst team in SEC history this year?
I don't know. The Arkansas team from that was maybe 2 years ago was really, really, really bad.
Okay.
They were. No, this has to be the worst team though.
I mean, they're bad.
Bad.
There have been bad Vanderbilt teams.
I think it looks worse because they're really going to go
Conference.
over. They're going to go over is their overall record. And so instead of getting a Middle Tennessee or a FCS school and actually getting a close win, they're going to lose to everybody and lose to everybody badly except for A&M in week 1.
Yeah.
And they've gone over in the conference before, but they've always have had
They've scared somebody.
to get them. Yeah, but they've got a cupcake to maybe go 2-10 or something like that. But
Right.
without that, they're just
Yeah, they're bad.
I mean,
Oddly enough, they played Texas A&M a 17-12 game to start the season.
yeah, that was such an anomaly. That's what had me thinking Texas A&M was going to be real super trash this year, and they have definitely gotten better. I mean, Derek Mason is gone. Vanderbilt has nothing in the cupboard right now. Just they're going to get destroyed this week with Georgia. JT Daniels is in at quarterback. They have a competent guy playing quarterback for him now. It's not going to look good for Vandy.
Right.
All right, let's just talking about. Even though listen, Derek Mason, I wish him all the best. I don't know where he goes from here. After not being able to, the first couple of years, kind of riding off of the coattails of the previous administration with some of that talent that they had, he was able to put a competent team out there on the field, but he just has not been able to since then.
he came in right after Franklin, right?
Exactly. So he might as well go coach at Duke or Stanford or some other Ivy school that the standard is not really necessarily how many football games you win, but the integrity of your program.
Right.
You know what would be a good
Moral
spot for
victories.
him? Defensive coordinator at the University of Florida.
You think so?
Yes, because he is
Why Florida?
because they need a defensive coordinator. Grantham is smoking mirrors.
He's overrated.
He's overrated.
He's
smoking
overrated for
mirrors.
sure.
They had the last little bit of. They had some good talent. They were still able to recruit well under McElwain.
It was Muschamp's talent that he's been
Yeah.
living off of.
It was the legacy of it was Muschamp's talent and the last whiff of look, our defense is good when McElwain was there, but it was still because the defense was Muschamp's talent. Now,
Yeah, even when he was at Georgia, he was getting good talent, and they was still shaky on that
worse
side of
than
the
they
ball.
should have been with that talent.
Right. No, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on Grantham being overrated.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem with that is that that position's not going to be open this offseason because Florida's playing too well right now. It's going to be probably another year or so before that position is going to be open. I think he'd probably have a better chance of getting the LSU head defensive coordinating position. But he's going to have to fight Muschamp for that. Like if you're going to hire a DC that's a former head coach, which of the two are you going to hire?
It's just wild to think of two head coaches who were both paid millions to be fighting over a position that's a step down and paying less money.
I mean, Muschamp can get a head coaching position somewhere else. It won't be in the SEC. There's not going to be a SEC head coaching vacancy that Muschamp could fill this offseason. Like who is
I don't
left?
even know there's an ACC.
I'm saying like who's left that is on the hot seat besides Gus, and Muschamp's not coming back to be the head coach of Auburn.
And you know what? Everybody else is
Solid. They either just got there or they're
Right.
solid.
Their school
Right.
can do.
Pruitt is probably the only other guy that is close
Yeah, I
to
would
being
say
on a hot
Pruitt.
seat.
I would say Pruitt.
He's closer than Gus because we're probably gonna have a winning record because we still got to play Mississippi State. So, yeah.
Yeah, Pruitt's close to a hot seat. I think he's still got another year of leash. If they have another losing season next year, though, I think Jeremy Pruitt might as well get his resume polished because he's not going to survive another season that has been this bad in Tennessee. Now, luckily, he's not going to have his Garantano problems anymore after this season. But
Yeah. That
speaking
guy
of
that put in
Tennessee,
the last drive against us,
he looks competent.
And he got
Yeah, he looks competent. He has no mobility whatsoever though. He he climbs the pocket well, like he has good pocket presence. But I don't think that he can dodge an oncoming rush to save his life. So they're going to have to scheme a little bit better for that kid. But yeah, Vandy's going to get blown out in this game. Derek Mason, trails to you, man. Hopefully you find. I feel like he's a good guy. He just needs a better
God
opportunity
bless you,
somewhere.
brother. You gave some wonderful speeches to the press right after. There was one where he was all fired up and he said anchor down at the end. I was like, whoa, boy, you just make me glad I ain't play football. But if I did play, I'll play for you.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about, since we talked about him a little bit here with Jeremy Pruitt, and we mentioned Florida as well with the Muschamp connection. Let's talk about how bad Tennessee's going to lose this week.
Listen, Kyle Trask is putting up Heisman numbers.
I agree he's putting up Heisman numbers. I don't think he's going to win the Heisman.
No, not no. I don't think so.
But I think his numbers justify it though. Like I don't know that anybody's having a better statistical season than him. Even Mac Jones, if you look at them head to head, he's thrown more touchdowns. He's thrown just as many, if not less, interceptions.
3 interceptions on the season.
With the assumption that they don't beat Bama in the SEC championship.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that gets him into the conversation if he has a Heisman type game.
Yeah.
Like that, he has to have a Heisman moment during that game where he puts his team on his back and beats the juggernaut that is Alabama.
Right.
Wait,
Right.
time out. If you don't think Trask is the front runner, then who is?
I think Mac Jones is.
I think Mac Jones is the front runner just because Alabama's ranked number 1 and he has played a hell of a season.
Right. They're undefeated.
That is likely. I always hate that because
I hate it too. I'm just telling you how the Heisman voters are going to.
And compare me, he's got.
I mean, he's a game manager according to Bo Nix. So.
Oh my Jesus.
Facts.
Oh my God! Please don't remind me. Please don't remind me. Our quarterback said
I want
that.
to stay away from that. I want to go away from that. Trask has a very good offensive coordinator and head coach, which is his biggest benefit. He's got an all-world tight end, and he's got a very good number 1 wide receiver. But that is nothing compared to what Bama has. Trask has no run game. Trask has no number 2. Matter of fact, Mac Jones' 3rd wide receiver may be just as good as Florida's number 1 wide receiver.
Right.
I don't like, and I know that's just the name game with college football and awards and trophies, but I really don't like that. I would give it to Trask because he's just working with a lot less.
So listen to this. In comparison, right? Like in comparison, Trask is completing 71.4% of his passes so far this season for 2,800 yards. Mac Jones is completing 76.2% of his passes. So he's got the edge by about 5%, just under 5% in completion percentage. But he's thrown for, 120 less yards than Trask has, right?
So here's the thing, too, though.
How many touchdowns, though?
They've both thrown 3 interceptions, but he has got the lead in touchdowns by a large margin, 34-23.
Really? Mac Jones only thrown
23 touchdowns.
I saw that. Yeah,
So
I saw that.
This is what I'm saying. Kyle Trask is having a better season. Like, let's just be clear, because for the most part, Mac Jones, who has a high completion percentage, is throwing to wide open guys.
Right.
He's throwing to guys that are wide open. Like, for as good as Kyle Pitts is, he's been covered a lot, and Trask has just been putting it where it's either Pitts or. I'm just saying though, but like if you look at the throws that Kyle Trask is making to Kyle Pitts, it's one of those things where it's like either Pitts is coming down with it or nobody. Like he's putting it in the correct spot, and Pitts is coming down with those catches. He's just a hard. He wins his routes well enough to give the space for that, but he ain't throwing to Devontae Jones, who's got a 10-yard cloud behind him. I'm definitely not just referencing our game here. He's done that all season. Or earlier in the season, Jalen Waddle beating somebody up the sideline by 5 yards. He's not making those kind of throws because those guys haven't been that open. He's making early, quick decisions and getting guys out and been schemed that way. And when he's having to make the tough throws, he's doing that. I think Kyle Trask is playing quarterback better than Mac Jones right now. As it's if I were a Heisman voter, Kyle Trask would be my Heisman.
Yeah, I agree
pick.
with that wholeheartedly. And let's remember, Mac Jones has got the better run game supporting him as well,
For
too,
sure.
right? Florida is
By
in
a
the
large
bottom
margin,
third.
actually.
Yeah, they're in the bottom third in the SEC in rushing offense, and Bama is 3. So I just can't stress enough. He is developed into top 5 quarterback in all of college football, if you ask me, right? All around, but yeah, I hard to throw when Najee can take it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
That's what I'm saying. He's got the better run game, so he has to do less. So he's
I think
making
his
higher
point is that
percentage throws.
his point is that Kyle Trask is having more opportunities to throw touchdowns because Bama has the better running game, who can score touchdowns via run. But I think
Right.
we're kind of both having the same argument here, which is why Kyle Trask is more, in my opinion, a more valuable player to his team.
Right.
Because he's having to do that much more to produce things on their offense.
Well, look at it this way too. For as much as he has to carry his team, you would think he would have more interceptions than
Right.
he has.
And his
Right.
accuracy is up there. Like he's
Yeah, right,
hitting
right.
73% of his pass. Like that's if we hadn't just seen what we saw last year at LSU, we'd be talking about this as one of the best performances we've seen from a quarterback on the football field.
Right.
Right.
In a full season, of course.
Yeah.
Or a full 12-game season. So, I obviously like Florida in this one. I still think there's a very interesting college football playoff scenario playing out here with a one-loss Bama and a Florida team that has a chance to go in there and shock the world, because the SEC champion is getting in. Period. No cap, no discussion, right? But Bama has been that kind of spoiler for the number 4 spot. Every year they're in the discussion. Now, they didn't make it last year, and I think rightfully so. But this year, I think based on how it's played out so far through 8-9 weeks, I think you would have a hard time telling me another team that would be more worthy of a 4 spot than a one-loss Bama right now.
This
No,
year,
yeah,
especially
easily.
because nobody else. I mean, we don't even know if Ohio State's going to qualify for their conference
Right.
championship. They might not even play enough games to
Right.
play their conference championship and be their conference champion. So this year, I mean, I don't know how you keep Bama out. Bama could lose the SEC championship game handily and still look around and say, well, who else you gonna put in there? And
Yeah, the only other team I could possibly see having an argument would be a one-loss Notre Dame if they lost in their ACC championship to Clemson.
they could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be the only other team that would have, because it's a little different because they've beat Clemson once already. So this would be the second time that they played, as opposed to Alabama and Florida. This would be the first time that they played, and Florida would win that game. So I don't know that anybody would want to see a three-peat in the finals if Clemson and Notre Dame were to both get in there. So that probably bodes a little bit less in the favor of a Notre Dame.
Right.
But I don't know if anybody really wants to see a repeat of an all SEC championship game. Well, actually, it would be. So that'd be interesting. So let's just say Clemson beats Notre Dame, right? They would then claim the number 1 spot because Bama would have just lost to Florida. Would
Right.
it be Clemson, Florida? Who's your number 3? Ohio State, maybe from the Big
Maybe.
Ten.
That's
And-
tough, man. That's
and then-
tough.
Assuming
and then Bama at 4? Or do we get 2 SEC and 2 ACC, and you end up having
I was gonna
freaking
ask about A&M. Does
Clemson,
A&M
Alabama-
Right. And then you have
Texas
A&M
A&M,
sitting
yeah.
out
Does
there
A&M
at 5.
sneak in there?
Right. If they
That's tough.
if they whoop us, we'll get to that in a second, and then finish out as a 1 loss, and their only loss was to Bama in a game where they didn't exactly get run off the field. I just think there's so many interesting arguments for 2 SEC teams possibly getting in this playoff. Right?
I mean, at that point, you're arguing 3 because Texas A&M would have to be out Florida and Alabama in order for it to only be 2 if Texas A&M is in that
right. Like
conversation.
if Florida, let's say Florida gets whooped, right? There's an argument if the cards fall right for Texas A&M sliding in. I just think with if OSU gets disqualified for some reason,
Right.
right? I think that is a likely scenario.
They are a postponed game away from that being a possibility.
No, I'm telling
they have
you.
to play every game now and win it to qualify. I
Now,
think.
and check this out. Just hear me out on this, fellas. Kellen Mond wins a national title over Bama, and then we have to talk about that with Brian for a week.
let's not get out of hand now.
That would be
that's not
amazing. That would be an
That's not happening.
amazing scenario. That would be the
Yeah.
best week of my life.
Nah, it's not. You would. Kellen Mond isn't the one that would make him upset. It'd be Jimbo Fisher.
Jimbo Fisher,
winning that.
right?
So,
The most mid, according to Brian, the most mid coach and the most mid quarterback win a national title. If they even make it to the game, I think it would be amazing.
Parcells won another natty B.
Yeah, all right.
Don't even do that. It would have to be a COVID year though. It would have to be some
for sure.
catastrophic circumstance because Jimbo don't have. Listen, man.
We'll get to him. We'll get to him.
We'll get there.
But
right.
yeah,
Florida.
I got Florida big.
Florida.
Yeah, I don't know anybody's picking Tennessee in this game unless you live in Knoxville right now. All right, so let's go to the other game that will not have any sort of drama whatsoever. If LSU sniffs a win in this, Bama should be ashamed of themselves because Bama's offense is too good, LSU's defense is too bad. Is anybody going to step out on a limb and say LSU explodes in the Superdome for 1 week only and wins a track meet of a game?
Now, I just want to take time to acknowledge that I called at least 4 losses for LSU this year.
I did.
And they're sitting at 3-4, so spot on with that prediction.
Now they're going to lose more than 4. They're probably going to lose 5 or 6.
For sure. Right. I mean, so yeah, there's that. But Alabama, yes, I think that I didn't see anything last week against us that really showed any chinks in the old armor, right? And I want to stress, if this team still had Jalen Waddle, they would be hands down. I would put money on them to go all the way, right? So
yeah, I just don't know who beats them. Period. Right now.
I'd
be hard pressed to find anybody in college football that is better than Alabama right now.
Quietly, they're having a very good defensive season as well too.
They've gotten much better on defense.
Right,
They were so prepared in our game that it's ridiculous. They basically were just like reading our playbook the whole game. So
Wait a minute.
I mean, I don't think it's difficult to prepare for Bo Nix.
Right.
Like, I don't think that's a difficult task
that-
for a defensive coordinator.
LSU didn't do it.
Yeah, they just didn't have the horses. They knew what to do. They just couldn't execute.
No, they were terrible.
It's a dumpster fire on that side of the football anyway.
Right, but what I'm saying is like you're saying that as if it's just a matter of being prepared. You have to have a little combination of preparation and people. I think LSU's got the people; they didn't have the prep.
Right.
Because they, recruiting wise, LSU's got all the horses necessary. They just aren't in position on a routine basis because they don't have the discipline. Bama has both of them.
Right.
So that being said, you really think Bo Pelini getting canned this year?
I would be shocked if Muschamp and Derek Mason are both sitting out there right now and Bo Pelini still has a job next season as LSU's defensive coordinator, and neither of them get a head coaching offer somewhere else. How do you not take them on, even if it's just a 1-year rental? Why do you not take a flyer on one of those guys?
Yeah,
and you've got Bo Pelini.
One thing about Coach O is we've seen him. Obviously, this year he's made a not so good personnel decision, but he has proven to make good ones in the past. I could see him making the move for either one of those coordinators, probably Muschamp.
Muschamp. I think you take Muschamp hands down. Listen, he may not.
Yeah, if I had to have my picks of the two, that's why I said earlier I feel bad for Derek Mason because the best job that's sitting out there right now is probably going to get first dibs is going to go to Muschamp for that.
He'll be all right. He'll find a job somewhere.
Actually, I think Tavares Robinson probably has a better shot of getting the D coordinator position at LSU than Derek Mason does.
Right.
Yeah, you're probably right. I don't know if Muschamp will want to.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing because again, Robinson's been following Muschamp everywhere that he's been going. If he goes and takes a DC job somewhere, Robinson has to go back and coach DBs again, right? And so I don't know that he wants to do that. So he's going to go try to get a DC position somewhere. The position, of course, is going to still be open at South Carolina. The position is likely going to be open at Vanderbilt, and the position should be open at LSU at the end of this season. Any of those 3 jobs, Tavares Robinson could definitely step in. I don't want to see him go to LSU just because I don't I hate those guys, and I don't want him coaching on that team. I was all right with South Carolina because it's like, they beat us. I get that, but South Carolina, who cares? I don't want him to go to LSU, but I
Last
want
thing
him to
they
get a good
need is
job.
another jolt in the recruiting from either one of those pickups. Like that's just gonna hurt.
Oh yeah, that's going to be the defensive the recruiting for defensive talent, specifically defensive backs, since LSU has had a run on great DBs of late, is going to be ridiculous if they pick up either of those hires, either Muschamp or Tavares Robinson, because they recruit great in
You
those
saw what their
areas.
recruiting did for us. 1 year of them gave
Auburn
us
Davis.
several years of good
Right.
defenses. So
Right.
it's
Was it,
my goodness.
Sim,
Like I pray Bo Pelini stays on.
Yeah.
We should be
Yeah.
rooting for Bo Pelini
No,
to
I'm
figure it out.
100% figuring, hoping that Ogeron somehow hangs his hat, like he dies on this hill with Bo Pelini being his guy.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, all right, let's move on to other games that are on the schedule. Let's see. We've talked about Arkansas. I think we've talked about
That's
every
it. That's
game
it, man.
except for the one that matters to us the most, and that is number 5 Texas A&M coming down to the Plains to face us. All right. Does anybody want to volunteer to take this first?
I will take this.
B. Will wants to come on first and talk about his favorite quarterback, not named Gus Malzahn. And I mean, favorite coach, excuse me, not named Gus Malzahn in the SEC, and that is Jimothy. I actually don't know what is his real name. Jimbo cannot be what his
Now,
mama named.
Yeah, I
now,
don't know. I
that
don't know.
was
It doesn't matter.
Jimothy. Good old Jimothy. So last week, I'm gonna read y'all Kellen Mond's stat line against LSU. Against LSU's defense,
Okay.
11 of 34, 105 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
John James Fisher Jr., just in case anybody wanted to know what
Nah,
his
it's
name
Jimothy.
is.
It's Jimothy. Listen, 105 yards at home against LSU's defense, 11 of 34. That's less than 33%. I know it. Listen, almost everybody in the SEC's defense is either mid or bad, except for Georgia might be mid now. I don't know. I really haven't been watching their games much, but they haven't looked nearly as good as when they played us. Alabama is the only consistent I see effort and
Florida's played a lot better in these past couple of weeks. So I have to say Florida has probably crept up above mid at this point in the season. They're not an elite defense by any
Right.
stretch of the imagination, but they definitely are a tough out on defense right now. I'd give Alabama and Florida probably 1 and 2 in the SEC as far as defenses. But you're right. The rest of the defenses, including ours, are very susceptible to get gashed on a consistent basis. Georgia probably is the number 3. Statistically, that probably doesn't bear out just because Georgia had a better start to the
but
season.
we
But
know
Bama
what we
and
see now.
yeah, eye test tells me Florida and Alabama are the tops. Georgia probably third, and then you fall out somewhere.
Oh,
on
I'm
probably
definitely
fourth.
going second. Finish up.
Go ahead.
So what I'm saying is, I think even though
Texas A&M's actually been playing decent on defense too. But go ahead.
right now they've been playing decent on defense, but the more I looked at, and I didn't watch Texas A&M early because I always assumed they're mid. The what do you call it? The carriage is going to turn back into a pumpkin. I don't have to worry about watching them because I know who Jimbo Fisher is. He's mid, right? And then they kept rolling, and then of course, they beat Florida, like Mike was bragging about. And then they kept rolling. I'm like, wait a minute, man, are they actually good? I don't want them to actually be good. I saw a half of football between that Florida game and last week, and I didn't see the game last week. I just checked the score consistently because I wanted to check my phone and know they aren't good. Jimbo, you not no. And luckily, they started to look like I expected them to look last week. I don't know exactly what explains only 105 yards passing for anybody. Like Bo Nix has managed. Wait, was he ever under 100 yards?
I had to check the Georgia game this year and see what
Yeah.
his.
If it was any game, it would have been Georgia.
Okay. And
Right.
all I mean to say is if you as a senior quarterback with your third year with the coach at home with at least
Nah, he threw for 177
Yep,
against
he
Georgia.
sure did.
that is the worst quarterbacking performance I've heard of outside of Vanderbilt, who I think only had 93 yards passing in their game last week. It looks like Midnight is striking a little early. Jimbo is going to be exactly who I thought he was. I read coverage. It was an article on the 24/7 Sports, but the Gig'em page, the Gig'em portal for Texas A&M, and the guy broke down beautifully not only what Texas A&M shortcomings were, but what ours were. Talking about how our DTs had bad leverage, they didn't play gaps that well. I was like, man, this. And he
Sounds like me talking.
It does. He's calling it a toss-up because he said it's exceptionally concerning that Kellen Mond played that way at home because he usually plays tentative and safe on the road. They give him shorter throws on the road. But if LSU was able to find something against you, that bodes well for us because we can just duplicate. They had 20 points against the worst LSU defense I probably have ever seen in 20 years as an SEC football fan. And you put up 20 points against that defense. I like our chances. I know we're hurt. I don't know who comes back to play on the offensive line. That's a really, really big deal. I think I gave that caveat a couple of weeks back, looking forward to this game, thinking we can beat them. And that was in our form when we were kind of rolling with Tank and Bo was starting to play better. I don't know what we've got and what type of offense we look like without those guys on the field. But I do like that we're at home. I like that Mon has had a really bad game and they've shown some weak points. And I'm picking us to win.
What's your score? What's your score? What's your score?
21-17. 21-17.
Okay. All right. I can get with that. I was going to make sure you weren't going to say nothing crazy.
I'm not you now.
All right, Mike, you have the floor to rebuttal.
Okay, so statistically, Texas A&M arguably has the best defense in the SEC.
I don't disagree with that statistically.
Statistically, right?
Yeah.
They are allowing an SEC best 87 yards on the ground.
Yeah,
right.
They won't hold against us, but continue.
Well, I don't know about that. Like,
they had the best run. They had the best run defense in the SEC last year, and we ran all up and down the field on them.
Okay, cool. Is Tank playing?
I don't know.
Is he still hurt?
He's going to be a week healthier than he was last week.
Yeah, we have a lot of problems.
The answer is no, Ike.
Yeah, right. So Tank won't be at full strength, right? We're going up against the best run defense in the league, right? They are like the third best pass defense in the league by like maybe 8 yards. They're 8 yards away from being the best pass defense in the league, right? And they're the third scoring defense in the league. Now, I agree with everything that Brian said about Texas A&M offensively, right? What I doubt is our ability to be able to actually generate enough offense to win this game, right?
That's
because in as mid as Kellen Mond is, he's still 16 touchdowns to 2 interceptions on the season. So he's not turning the ball over a whole lot, right? And he could have the type of game that he has, and I just don't believe that we can generate enough offense to win this game if they play to their averages defensively. I just don't, right? So we're going to need an assist from them on defense. And we're going to need our quarterback to have a better than average game for him to beat them. We need both those things to happen, right? So I predict if we're going to win this one, we're going to win a low scoring game. But because of all the late game mismanagement stuff that I've seen from Auburn this season, right? I don't trust us in a late game scenario with the football. So I am picking Texas A&M to win this one by about the reverse of what Brian predicted. I think that they'll squeak out 3 touchdowns. And we're going to kick and miss field goals. And I just don't, if it's that tight at the end and it comes down to who has the ball last, I have zero confidence that we'll be able to drive the ball down the field late on this defense with our quarterback and win the game. Right? I mean, they are sneaky good defensively this year. I mean, Bama leads the league in scoring defense at 18 points a game, 18.4 points a game. And they're just creeping behind it at like 22. And if you're telling me that you think that we're going to score more than 22 in this game, like I doubt we get to there. I doubt we get to that, right? Like I really do. And the only reason their average is that high
right, is because they got juggernauted by Alabama's offense in that one game, where they be leading the league in scoring defense, right? So,
Well,
you know,
we also have to always give the caveat they played Vanderbilt, which is a stat pad.
okay, fair.
Florida put up a ton of points against them too.
Okay.
Florida did. They did play Vanderbilt. That's fair. Florida, that's fair. Who else from the East did they play?
They played
That's it.
right. I mean, they went up against the two best quarterbacks in our league, though, who are having Heisman seasons.
Yep.
Right. You know, and they're still sitting here at 6-1. So, and
Their
I think
other East
and I think
opponent
that's-
was Vanderbilt, and Florida.
I think that's noteworthy for them, right? Like, I just think again, you know, they should easily be sitting here with. Like,
They
two
played
losses.
South Carolina too.
We lost to South Carolina, so like
I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about South Carolina. I don't care about who we lost to. I'm talking about they played South Carolina.
Okay, cool. Well, listen, at the end of the day, how many points did we score in that game against South Carolina? Against their defense?
22? It was 22 to 30.
Right around their average,
Yeah.
right? Like, so yeah, I just don't like I my doubt about this is our ability to be able to generate offense based on what I saw last week. Right? You know, against decent teams, we have not performed very well. Right? Georgia, I mean, we all can agree that Georgia, they're not exactly looking like world beaters right now, and we are only able to muster 6 points against that defense. And the only thing that may help us is that if Mond has a bad game, he may be as ineffective as at moving the ball as Bo Nix will, maybe worse. So we may win the field position battle and maybe squeak out a few more field goals. Like, you know, I just don't see. I mean, I'm just looking at them. They're solid, and I said it earlier in the season. You know, even though it didn't play out that way in the Florida game, right? You know, I thought that their defenses, they're talented defensively. They're sneaky good defensively. You know, and if they had a Kyle Trask type quarterback, we would be talking about them truly in the national title conversation. I just don't think it's going to happen with Kellen Mond. So, like, I said that I thought that 4 to 5 losses was a reality for Auburn this season. And after the totality of what I've seen so far this year, you know, I'm sticking with that. I think that this team finishes 6-4, maybe. Right? That's, you know, I'm not even giving us Mississippi State at this point, right? Like, I just believe that we're too hurt, we're too mismanaged, and we've got talent, but we don't have coaches that know what to do with it. So I'm going 17-21. I'm the opposite of Brian, Texas A&M. If Mond has a decent game, they may score more than that because Bo Nix may hand them a few points on a platter.
Okay.
Hopefully that happens the other way around.
All right, Caesar, what you got for this one? You're muted. Yep, go for it.
Other reason why Mond has thrown 16 touchdowns and only two picks this season is because he has a great running game behind him, which is what gashed Florida. And if you look at our past few games, starting with Tennessee, we're starting to get gashed up front, guys. The only reason why Bama didn't go off on us was because they didn't have to. They have Mac Jones, right? I think their running back, he got easily over 100 yards on 11 carries for Bama.
I don't know what his numbers were.
Can someone check that? I think he had only 11 carries in that game.
Who you talking about? Texas A&M?
Najee Harris. No, we're talking about
Bama's running back.
Oh,
talking about Najee Harris. Now, he got a lot of that on one run, but still.
Okay. But my thing is that, like, we are starting to get gashed, and that is something that A&M is good at, running the football. On the flip side, A&M is...
he had 96 yards, actually. Not 96 yards. I just looked it up.
96? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then on the flip side, A&M is 12th. Last stat I saw, 12th in the nation in rushing defense. They're second in the SEC in rush defense, giving up under 100 yards, and we've been averaging with a retooled O-line that is injured and missing guys, and our best runner, we're averaging not bad, but 154 yards per game. But we're lining up against one of the best run defenses in the nation.
Right.
That does not bode well for us. Basically, we're outmatched in the trenches against this team. And who's going to save us? Bo?
Right. That's my point.
We're depending on Bo Nix to overcome those inefficiencies or those issues. We're depending on the coaching staff to be prepared like they was prepared in the Iron Bowl, the game that should matter the most, to compensate for those deficiencies. Nah, bro. Like I want Jimbo to be the used car salesman that Brian says he is, but he is going to disappoint Brian on Saturday. And I think I got A&M winning. I got them winning. I'll keep it close, but I don't know if it's going to be that close. I'm gonna say 24-20 A&M.
Yeah. For the record, to add to Caesar's, they only gave up 109 yards total on the ground to Alabama. A&M did. So Bama didn't run up and down the field on them by any stretch. Which I just think it validates their rush defense.
Hey man,
Okay.
listen, that's all I'm gonna say, man. I don't care what them stats is. I don't care about none of that. All right, Jimbo Fisher gonna lose because he's mid. That's it. That's what I'm basing this off of. Y'all got all
Look
these
at you.
stats.
We are mid. We are mid. Right.
We are, but we're at home, and that makes
Okay.
a difference. It should not. If you were a good team, it would not make a difference. But we are not a good team. We need home field advantage. We need it, and we got it this week.
All right, so I'm gonna pick us to win this game, guys.
Of
course.
I knew you go.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean,
knew you was
shocker.
God damn it.
Yeah,
I
we're gonna pick us to
thought
win
for
this
sure this would be the game where you was like,
No.
Listen, I other than what I did in the pregame against Alabama, I did pick Alabama on the preview show to win that game because, of course, they were going to win that game.
Right.
I am going to pick us to win this game 20-16. 20-16 is what I think the final score will be. I think it's going to be a lot of field goals manufactured in this game. I just think that we find the end zone a couple times. I'm banking a lot on our defense putting us in some good positions here. I think that the difference between what you saw with Alabama last week and the gashing that we started to see towards the mid third quarter, and what we'll see against Texas A&M is Bama has a much better pass offense, and our defense against the run was great in the first half of that game. And I think that they can consistently continue to do that because they're not going to get softened up by the pass against Kellen Mond. We have a good enough back end in the secondary that I think it puts us in a position for this to be a tight game, even in a position to flip the field a couple of times and allow us some short fields where we can get a couple of scores. I'm going to pick us to win this game 20-16. Yeah, that's how I feel about it. That's how it's going to go.
okay, so we're all in agreement about the amount of offense that we're going to see on both sides of the ball. Really,
I don't expect this to be a high scoring game.
Right,
If it's
yeah.
honestly, if this is a high scoring game, that doesn't bode well for us.
I
I
think
agree.
It breaks 50. It doesn't break 50. It's 50 or less for the total.
What's the
The over
spread on
under?
this one?
It's a 7-point spread favoring Texas A&M. The over under on this is 49.
Is it a 7?
Yeah.
Dang, it's still a 7.
Yep.
Bet it down by now. Man, it's
Nope.
just gotten wider. Lord, they don't trust us. I mean, I don't blame them, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to trust. Here's a good question from Gabe here. That if AU drops this game this weekend, does that cause the powers that be to make the change? I don't think
No.
so, Gabe.
No.
I think we're going to have to lose the Mississippi State game as well for that hot seat to be firmly in a position where they almost have to. If we lose this game and we lose out against Mississippi State at the end of the season, then I don't know that they have a choice other than to empty the coffers and just get rid of this contract with Gus.
Right.
So I don't know where that puts our program post that game, but in us to win this game, so I don't know that it's going to matter.
A lot of coaches are getting the COVID pass this year, right? Like,
Yeah.
this season is a mess in a lot of ways. No preseason, right? Like, a lot of coaches are getting a COVID pass. So, like, I don't see it happening.
I don't really understand how a COVID pass should work. Considering every coach had to deal with COVID, so it's not like it
Yeah, I
impacted
agree.
disproportionately some other program. I just think that
But some programs needed the preseason more than others. We were one of
for
those
sure,
schools,
and I think
right?
that's a problem in the head coach that runs your program, not anything like. So if you were not prepared for the season, then the guy who's the administrator over that program, i.e., the football team, is the head coach, and he's the
Agreed.
problem.
Agreed.
We've seen what Malzahn has done with a full spring and summer. Some years nothing. It takes him almost 3-4 games through the season to figure out what he's got.
Right.
Like
Consistently.
I just don't like. You can look at just the last game and why Mark Anthony Richards wasn't getting more carries earlier in that game. He was clearly the healthiest back that we had on the team outside
Right.
of Sean Shivers. And why he wasn't in the game more, you have to scratch your head and wonder, do you not know? Like,
What are we doing? What are
in
we doing?
preseason and all the talks when he was hurt, they kept talking about how great this kid was, and like so you hear people talking about his talent. Why don't we get to see him play on the field when you know Tank is hurt? When you know that DJ Williams is hurt, you're not putting him in until the fourth quarter in garbage time. That just doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
When you need a spark, something on offense to keep Bama honest because they're just selling out on the fact that they realize you can't run the ball against them. So it's like, all right, great. We're just going to blitz the crap out of you and make Bo Nix have to arm, and he's not doing it. They're just sitting on every underneath route and hoping that you throw the ball to him, and he did it twice. So I don't know. I just don't understand the talent evaluation / talent, their ability to actually groom talent and make them better at this program has been very suspect on the offensive side of the football. I just don't know how you can have 9 years of that.
Right. Yeah, I think that's been Auburn's number one problem, right? It's just developing talent in
Yeah.
general, right?
Well, like I
Consistently
said,
consistent. Yeah.
evaluation and development of talent. Like, let's talk
Right.
about. And we've already put our picks in, but let me get on this small tangent, I guess, a little bit about Auburn and their lack of ability to evaluate talent. Right. We already talked about development of talent being a big problem. Let's just talk talent evaluation, right? Like their ability to see a guy, say, this is the guy who we need to get to our team, put that guy in a position to be good, right? For whatever reason, had Nate Craig Myers on your team and couldn't see your way to putting the ball in his hands on a consistent basis, he transfers off of the team. Now, I know that there's some words behind the curtain stuff that happened with him, but I think the growing frustration that he had from not seeing the field contributed to some of the off the field issues that you
Right.
saw with him. So you have
Players
to blame a
wanna play.
little. Yeah, they want to play, and he's like, all right, well, if I ain't gonna play, whatever, I'm gonna just go out here and do stupid stuff. I'd rather get kicked off the team than be sitting here on the field not being utilized. When you see stuff happen, like I'll never forget the fact that, and I didn't know this until I started watching what's the show?
Last
Last
chance
Ch-
you.
When I watched Last Chance U, all the hype that came in with John Franklin III,
Right.
they saw him play the only game he got playing time in that entire season. He played really well in that game, but that's the game that they came to evaluate him, and they were like, "Oh, we got to get this guy on the team." You didn't look to see that he didn't see the field the remainder of the season because he couldn't beat out the first team guy. So like you just said to yourself, "I'm gonna go get the backup quarterback from a freaking JUCO school to come play and compete for my starting quarterback position at Auburn."
Right.
Make that make sense to me. You didn't even evaluate this guy beyond a game. You just knew he was really fast, and you barely used him when you got him there.
Right.
There was literally
And
no point.
Jeremy Johnson and Sean White. I see why you got to go. We got to get somebody. You can run and just go get him. I understand.
But then you brought him up here, and
Didn't
did he
use him.
start? Did he start?
No. He started
Okay,
with Gary
so
when Sean White
In
was
fact,
third to throw.
you moved him to receiver.
Exactly.
correct. So what I'm saying is you didn't do your due diligence to even evaluate the kid for real. You saw him play one game, and you were like, "Oh, he's amazing." It's like, no, he played against another trash JUCO school and blew them up. Like that's
And
not
not to
talent
mention,
evaluation,
you have no idea what to do with players like that.
right?
So even if you thought he could play quarterback,
Why are we going that far back in the past? Let's just
I'm
go to the
just I'm just
2018. Let's go to
I'm
the
just showing
2018
I'm
class.
showing you how this is a pattern though.
It's a
I'm showing
pattern.
you that this is not like a new phenomena of not being able to evaluate talent and
Fair
put them in
enough.
position to be good. I still don't understand how some of the kids like Darius Slayton weren't getting more targets in our offense. You see what he's doing at the you had Jared Stidham, a pro caliber quarterback to throw the ball to him, a pro caliber wide receiver, and that offense was run dominant even
Broke
after.
records. He should have
I
broke
just
records at Auburn.
I just don't. You see what I'm saying? Like you're not evaluating talent and putting him in a position to be successful because you're too stuck on your system, and your system only works if you've got all the gimmicks necessary to make it work. You weren't even plugging the right cogs into your own machine. You built the machine and you don't even know how to repair
okay.
it when
So
it's
is
busted.
it fair to say then that
We need a new
so
coach.
so you raise an interesting point, right? Because we've been talking about this a lot from one angle about I
Agreed,
agree.
Gabe.
Yeah, agreed.
I
Like
don't, but that's for another day.
that we've been talking a lot about the development of talent, but Ike raises a good point about the evaluation.
Agreed, Gabe.
Right? Like how we evaluate who is even the best guy to start on our team has been a problem.
Right.
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 And
Because Tank was not the back this season.
right, right. He was clearly the best, but wasn't. Right. And then we're wasting time with DJ Williams and maybe Mark Anthony Richards should have been the clear number two. And so again, that just points to a lot of mismanagement to me, right? Like,
Right.
you are mismanaging this team because talent to me has never been the issue, right? The difference
Well,
between a number 10 recruiting class and a number 5 recruiting class is not that great, right? Because there are hits and misses in every class, right? And one guy can boost, a class up, a few notches. But overall, if you know what you're doing with top 10 talent, you should be in the discussion for a national championship halfway through every season, right? That's what we're seeing from the schools who do it consistent. Ohio State always in the discussion for a national championship, right? They have a system and they evaluate talent consistently at the most important positions, right? Georgia, even listen, they had the best quarterback room that I think I've ever heard of at one point, right? Between Jacob Eason, Justin Fields, and Jake Fromm. And all those dudes were able to start at other schools. So unlike us, their backups left and had good careers at other schools, right? So where is that at Auburn, right? This is my biggest knock on Gus. He had this really, really narcissistic rule about not wanting his quarterback to work with DB coaches with quarterback coaches in the offseason, right? And it started to gain press, and he got a lot of flack for it. And so finally, he let Nick Marshall go work with like Mike Vick's trainer, right? He did some workouts with Michael Vick, and I was wondering, I was like, why wouldn't you want them to work with at least like throwing coaches in the offseason? Or I don't understand, or just on fundamentals for footwork and things of that nature. They're clearly not getting it with you. So if your quarterback is going to take the initiative to hire a QB coach, right? When Cam left Auburn, he went and hired Whitfield to work on mechanics.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who saw his workout before he went to the league said that it was one of the best QB workouts they'd ever seen, right? Like I just don't understand. This is why I'm down. This is why I'm not picking us to win this game. Right, it's mismanagement all over the field, right? Like, I don't trust them. The Bo Nix disaster at the end of both halves in South Carolina, it was embarrassing. That was embarrassing, fellas, right? Our quarterback runs around with the football until the time runs out and then tries to run it in from 20 yards. What in the
Valley.
actual hell were we watching?
for a
Valley
second-year
All-Star.
starter in the SEC, the lack of end-of-game awareness, situational awareness, was astoundingly awful.
Well,
Right. So where do we go from here? And again, I'm like, listen, if you want to give Jimbo Fisher some credit, like he's managing an extra mid quarterback to possibly a one-loss season. I'd take that. I would take that. Right.
Well,
If he could, I think that Jimbo could come into Auburn and manage us to a 7-1, a 9-1 season with the same talent.
no.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, nah.
he ain't gonna give you that.
Absolutely.
He ain't give you that. Here's my thing. From 2018, guys, we have lost, I think, 7 4-star players from the 2018 recruiting class. Gatewood, Matthew Hill, who announced his transfer, who
Right.
we didn't know what to do with him. Coinus Miller, we talked about him a few weeks back. Harold Joyner had no
Right.
clue what to do with him.
We'll come back to Harold Joyner in a minute.
Michael Harris, I think he was a tight end. I think a guy on defense who we and most of these transfers guys are offensive players. Like we're seeing very few defensive guys. Of course, Coinus had issues and got kicked off the team. But offense, we're seeing too many offensive guys come in, heralded, and leave for whatever reason.
Correct.
And again, it speaks to your point, Ike, about our inability to evaluate talent for what we intend to do. If you're going to do something, then recruit for it. Don't try to get kids who don't really fit what you do, and you got to throw them to defense or put them somewhere where they don't really fit.
I
to make
still
your
don't
system
understand
work.
if I get the philosophy of like being able to adjust really quickly to punt safe, and that's why you want Christian Tutt to be your returner. He's a dangerous return guy, and he plays DB, so you can just, it makes sense to have a DB be your return guy. But if you were putting Matthew Hill in at a DB anyway, and you're stalling him to do that, you had him on kick return coverage, why not let the kid return punts? Because he's a dynamic guy or kickoff returns, right? Like,
Don't put Shivers back there.
The ball in his hands, I've seen him do this in a day. I saw him do it in his high school tape. He's a dynamic kid with the ball in his hands. So you don't have enough room in the wide receiver room for him. Why can't he return kicks? You can't turn him into a specialist for that and be the guy who comes in and just makes amazing plays to put your offense in a good position?
Yeah.
I just don't understand. And we do this all the time with kids. We have kids that have all the talent in the world and they don't see the field at all.
Ike, I love Eli Stove, but Eli Stove has lost a step. You telling me Hill couldn't have got some of these touches? That's what you telling me, Gus?
Right.
It's all dependable though. That's what. If there's any fault to what Mike said, it's not a talent issue. It is a talent issue. The talent issue that we have is we can't recruit
at the coaching. Never mind. All right.
Right. Yeah. We have untalented coaches. Right.
No. We do not get the offensive line talent.
Offensive line, I'll agree with.
Which is
whose fault is that?
Making listen, if you want to put that on anybody, that is the boosters. Straight up. That's as simple as that is boosters. So when kids want to come here and you say, all right, there's however much you're gonna get offered to go to Georgia or Alabama or Clemson, we're gonna lose those battles. If it's Georgia, Alabama, or Clemson, the same thing with we had a linebacker that we were looking at, I want to say it was last year. He was like a 5-star. Travis Williams does good. He has good rapport with recruits. And he went to Clemson. Because it's Clemson. They're selling $100 million worth of gear every time they make it to the playoffs. And we are begging people to collect money to fire.
Right. But Clemson wasn't Clemson until they were Clemson.
That's
right.
True, but you know what?
So they had to get there.
They could do? They had to get the quarterback recruit around which they could build everything else out.
That's not what they did.
Watson was it.
That's not what they did.
Do they win even with all the
That's
talent?
not what they did.
Do they win that championship without Watson?
No. Here's the difference in what you're saying. Clemson's program was on the incline before Watson got there. Because Taj Boyd was putting up great numbers before he got there.
They just lost a couple critical.
But it happened when Dabo got the heck out of the way and let his coordinators and coaches coach and not force feed his system onto coaches and players to do what he wanted them to do. He got
Right.
the
Hold
heck
on.
out the way, and then the program took off.
And
A
then they
very
did
critical
not
point
miss at
there.
quarterback. They
They
have
did-
not missed at quarterback
They have
since
not
then.
missed. They went from one extremely talented transformational quarterback prospect. They had Kelly Bryant for a year, and they were like, you out of here. Sorry, buddy. You cannot.
And
like
Kelly Bryant was a
He was
serviceable
actually decent.
quarterback.
He
He
was
lost 2
serviceable, but
games.
They knew what they needed. They needed outstanding, and they had them in the pipeline. They were like, sorry, Kelly, listen, we appreciate everything you did.
Right.
Get out.
But
Come on,
but they
sunshine.
made the call to go away from him. In
But
light of
you
his
know why
record.
that is, though. You know why that. I mean, we know Gus is false. He's too stubborn. His system isn't flexible enough. The problem is that
That answers your question, by the way, Gabe. Gus is too stubborn to do that or allow anyone to evaluate the program because he's a narcissist.
Listen, it used to be a thing that coaches would they would do these kind of these coaching camps, right? Where our coaches would go up and study, Urban Meyer's offense, right, at Ohio State, right? They stopped doing that. It was kind of like an honorable thing, but these coaches were fans of each other's systems.
Yeah.
And they would go and they would pick things up at these 7-on-7 camps in the summer, and they would take notes and they would share ideas offensively with coaches that they would not have to see every year, right? There's less of that going on now, to Gabe's point, but he needs somebody. Right now, what we would need is we need to do it. We need to catch lightning in a bottle with somebody like Joe Brady. In the mold of Joe Brady, like LSU did.
No, you know what?
Right?
I don't even think that's the case. I think we're missing a very critical part. The very critical part is that let's look at anybody who has had
The head coach. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
We know it's the head coach, but we're pretty much stuck with him. So all we have to do is, with his limitations, with his quirks, and with what we know his faults are, what is the best possible outcome? Unfortunately, he has made Auburn an undesirable place to go for quality quarterbacks,
Correct.
for quality wide receivers,
Correct.
and his system is also frowned upon for offensive linemen as well. We just happen to have Braden Smith, who was really just a great offensive interior lineman, who kind of exceeded those expectations for people coming out of the system and was taken second round by the Colts, and he's actually thriving at the NFL level right now. Everybody else who gets to the league from here, they don't start. They start in like a backup role, but they don't really start. The system is the problem, so the coach needs to concede to what he thinks the system is and just go overboard. Like, we should be damn near Georgia Tech from the last 15 years. That's what we should be if we're going to succeed with Gus's system. They still got quarterback. How did Calvin Johnson go to Georgia Tech? The best wide receiver the NFL saw for like 10 years was at a place where they ran the ball threw the ball like 10 times a game. How? I don't know. Why can't we catch lightning in a bottle? It only has to be a few places, because we've got a quality. All these criticisms we have, they don't apply to defense anymore. They can't get the superstar big splash recruit as often as Clemson and Georgia and Alabama.
Right.
But they do well with what they get. We get guys who are playing better than their recruiting status. We get guys who are improving from freshman to junior and senior years. I'm happy with that. On the offensive side of the ball, we have been marred by Gus's mismanagement of the talent here, and there is no way to undo that unless Gus concedes. Listen, I want the best dual threat guy, because can he not throw that well? Doesn't matter. That's the guy I want. We're gonna mash people. We're not gonna spend all this money on the fastest wide receiver. I want the guy with dependable hands that's gonna block well. Get me the threes in here, the work hard guys. I don't want the flashy guys. We're gonna spend on the offensive line, because that's what's gonna make my system work best, and we'll build everything else out from there.
Right. So the problem that I have with all this, with everything you're saying, right, is that recruiting is like a multi-year kind of thing. Every once in a while, you get a guy who can come in and make an impact immediately. But for the most part, your team is what you did 2 or 3 years ago.
right? So when you miss an evaluating in 2018, that's what we're seeing now. To Caesar's point about how many guys from that recruiting cycle are not on this team anymore. That's exactly what we're watching right now.
Guys who made this recruiting class a top 15, top 10 are
right, but they're not anymore because those guys aren't here. Right.
And that problem is twofold. It's an overpromise to the kid when he comes in because he's thinking I'm going to come in and start immediately. And then it's a mismanagement of the kid to be able to manage his expectations and or put him in position to see the field and or succeed prior to him getting frustrated and deciding to go somewhere else.
Exactly. I think that's what we saw with Gatewood. Right? Like, you know, the key moment was when we were doing terribly against LSU.
Florida. It was Florida.
Was it Florida? No, it was LSU, I thought. And he went to go, he thought he was going in the game. And Gus pulled him out. And if I'm Gatewood, I'm like, if you ain't even going to put me in now, with Bo playing as bad as he's playing.
And it was an obvious situation where Gatewood would have been the guy to come in. It was like
got into the red zone.
Yeah, it was like third and short or something like that. Or it was either second and goal or third and short. And it was like, okay, obviously we're going to Gatewood right here.
Package for sure.
Right. And Gatewood time. Rushed his spirits. I would have transferred out too. I'm sorry. No, wait. I mean, if you this tied to this guy, right? You know, for whatever promise he made to Patrick Nix, or I don't know what was going on there, but like if you're this tied to this guy, I really think that it was a red zone goal line package, right? Yeah, like it was something where obviously Gatewood should have been in the game. And then you yank the kid out, and we're like, okay, so Gus has pretty much just tied his future at Auburn to Bo. He's bet it all. He's bet the house on Bo. You know, and he seems to do that. His overconfidence in himself is what I think is really holding Auburn back. Right, rather than letting go and truly letting go, and then figuring out, like, listen, man, Cody Burns has got to go. I love Cody, man. He's an Auburn guy, but these receivers are not getting better. We're not getting the, the system does not allow for. I said it since for years. If you're a top receiver, I don't know why you come to Auburn.
Does it matter who he hires?
So here's the thing. It matters only. It only matters if in this offseason they 100% pivot and say, Gus says, you know what, Chad, your show. Go for it.
Recruit your guys.
He's not doing that.
Right.
Again, you ask, is it going to matter? The only way that it matters is in that scenario. That's it.
And I agree with
He's got to let go.
I agree with that. It's just not happening.
Which is why we need a new coach.
Why fire Cody? Like we dump on Cody, but who hired him?
Blow this up now.
And you had Damian Craig prior, and they butted heads. Damian Craig and Gus did. Why? Right. Because of Gus's BS. So does it matter who you bring in as long as Gus is the head coach?
No.
No.
Honestly, it doesn't. No. That's the bottom line.
Right. So,
but the question is, Gus has put us in he's put us in football purgatory, right? Like we're not so terrible that we are Vanderbilt, but we're not good enough to beat the elite teams. And so like a program cannot advance in purgatory. It's literally it's impossible when you're in this median point to advance as a program when a coach has been consistently putting you in the mid tier of that of the league.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. That's what happened at Texas A&M when they had Kevin Steele. Not Kevin Steele. Why?
Kevin Sumlin.
Kevin Sumlin. Thank you. That's what happened at Texas A&M. They had a couple of good seasons and they fell off. That's what happened at Georgia when they had Mark Richt. That's what happened. It happens again and again and again and again. You have to be able, as an administration, to say, you know what? This isn't working. You're not terrible, but you're not good enough either.
Right.
But the problem is, of course, with us, is that the same way we cannot compete for the absolute top tier guys, except for an exception every other year, we don't have the program that is ready made. Like our administration, by all reports, and this is just, I'm sure we all hear some of this, it is that administration is going to go, all right, here are the keys. I be home by 9. Have my car cleaned out, gas tank full. And the guy's like, hold up, man, I'm 35. Oh, I don't need no curfew. I'm going to run this program.
So,
go ahead.
So, I just think it's just time to blow it up. and start
It
over.
is.
Right?
Yeah, the only problem is you probably lose Kevin Steele in the process.
Yeah, I listen, man. At this point, we're wasting these defenses anyway. So what does it matter?
Right.
Right? Like, I mean, last year we had a
Well, I just said it's
championship.
unfortunate. I didn't say that it was.
Yeah,
It's got to happen,
yeah,
but it's
I agree.
unfortunate.
I agree.
yeah. At the end of the day, last year we had a championship level defense that we wasted on Bo
He might be
Nix's
much
freshman
champ.
year.
No, man, we get more.
Yeah,
As the head coach here at Auburn.
No, DC.
Oh, I was like, what are
yeah.
we doing?
I only want Muschamp if he's going to stay though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he don't
That's
wanna
true.
do that.
I only want Muschamp
Yeah,
if he's going to stay.
That made me
He's gonna-
very upset when he came and he left like
Yeah.
so quickly. Like,
Yeah, I don't wanna do that.
I was upset at that.
Listen, his little impact that he had on Auburn was significant for us on defense, though.
Sure.
Right. So if he's going to come and he's going to be a 5 to 6 year guy, great. If not,
5
then I
to
don't
6
want
years I can deal with, but he was here what, 2 years?
A year.
A
year.
year.
a year.
A year.
Yeah, screw that.
Nah, that's not
So,
enough. Yeah.
That's not enough. And then offense.
But that was a lot had to do with him butting heads with Gus too. Like I don't think he and Gus got
That
along.
too. That
Right.
too.
like
I think he would have stayed longer.
I think that if you're recruiting against Auburn for offensive talent, you have a really good case to make in a recruit's home about why you choose literally any other school over Auburn offensively. And you
Fact.
just point to our record on the field and the stats, and like, you know, I mean, it's not a hard. You don't have to sit there and blast us, but just like, listen, man, look at these guys offensively. You want to play at the next level, come to my school. Like Dan Mullen, he's going to be able to recruit whatever offensive talent he wants next year. Right?
And the cupboard already looks like it's full
It's
at
full.
Florida right now.
And it's just going to get more full because he knows what
That
he's
kid
doing
Jones
offensively.
looks good, man.
I
Yeah.
mean, we just watched what this man for years did at Mississippi State. Mississippi State,
Right.
and he had competent quarterbacks.
Always, right? So, you know, even then, look, they don't have much of a run game, but if you're a top running back recruit, that might excite you, and you might say, hey, listen, man, they've got these trash guys at running back. I might be able to walk in here and start at Florida.
Right.
Right. And then I don't even have to be the guy, and I can still out talent people, you know. I mean, with a competent quarterback will actually open up holes for a running back. Right. A competent passing game will make room for a run game, you know, and or vice versa. But you got to be competent at something.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, which is why I started to have hope for this season when we saw Tank Bixby emerge. I was like, okay, we've got a run game. Now, if we can just figure out how to complement that with a competent pass game, we will have something. And when he got hurt, it was just like, when the offensive line got hurt,
with these injuries too, I'm kind of looking at our strength and conditioning program as well too, and wondering what's going on there. This rash of injuries, you know, it just seems like when was the last time we made it through a season?
This is a product and I'm being honest with you. When I was saying that talent is the problem, the offensive line is not good enough. We cannot recruit good enough. We are not getting big mashing guys. We are getting undersized guys who are bulking up. We are getting undersized guys who are just playing at the weight that they can play at. We're getting, if the guys are big enough, they're slow. Their feet aren't good enough, and so we're trying to improve. And I've seen offensive linemen improve, but I don't think we're getting.
Do you know what school used to do that? You know what school used to do that? Was Oregon, right? They used to get those undersized, semi-athletic linemen, and it worked in the pack until they ran into the big boys who had the speed and the size. And I mean, think about that national title game in 2010. Right?
They played LSU a few seasons later.
Yeah, we dominated them on both sides of the ball.
And they couldn't do nothing. They
couldn't do nothing, man. Nick Fairley was busting through there. He was the MVP of that game to me. Yeah, right? Like they could not stop him. And you know, the thing that we were supposed to have at Auburn was we were supposed to get the guys who were big and fast and athletic.
Yeah.
Right, you know, and to Brian's point, maybe they've gone away from that a little bit. Like I don't know, but I just feel
they can't afford to compete. Listen, man, Georgia's getting that talent, Alabama's getting that talent, LSU's getting that talent. LSU's kind of taking a step back in recruiting since Orgeron got there. Les Miles had a better recruiting role going. Clemson's definitely getting that talent. Now Mullen's going to get that talent at Florida. We are not going to. We are second tier.
I mean, Lane Kiffin is going to start poaching talent from the SEC. Like, he hasn't even had a full recruiting cycle.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm just like, yo,
Yeah,
like, I don't know how you're
it's
watching this and then
So
thinking, like,
that's the problem. But see, the problem then becomes if you want to really get competitive on the offensive line, we don't have enough resources to get the few big recruits that we get and load up on the offensive line. So what we're doing is we're bargain bin shopping. That's why we're grad transfer captains every time offensive linemen hit the transfer market. Oh, you played it, in the Ivy League. Oh, well, you did pretty good. Yeah, but he's like 6'4", 280. It doesn't
right,
matter. They figure they can get him in and coach him up. And it's not that they can't be serviceable, but when you're playing outside of your weight and strength and guys are bigger and stronger than you, that is how you get hurt.
right.
And that's what's happening.
Yeah.
I don't know how you convince them. What, you tell them don't go after that shiny wide receiver and running back recruit that you got? No, because that's gonna make headlines more than that offensive lineman. But what's gonna make the team? What's gonna make the offense go?
but see that so to me again, this comes back to a person fundamentally not understanding how to manage his program. Because if you're always going for the flashy item, then you don't understand what you do well and recruit to your strengths. I
Right.
don't, for me, I wouldn't care if we won the recruiting battle if we were getting W's every year. I don't care what the recruiting rankings look like. That has absolutely nothing to do with me. Did I get the guys that fit my program so I can win games on Saturdays? That's what should matter. And that has not seemed to matter. We've been out here trying to out recruit Nick Saban as opposed to figuring out how to put competent teams on the field that can beat Nick Saban.
Right.
And which he's been living off the fact that he has a winning record against him. But I'm talking about consistently winning
Just more of a
championships.
winning record than most people.
Right.
Yeah. Listen, the road to the SEC championship goes through Tuscaloosa, right? Period. It goes through Tuscaloosa every year, right? So, to Ike's point, yeah, you need to focus on building a team that will be competent enough, right, and talented enough to be competitive. And that's where, see, Georgia is closer to that line than any other team in the SEC, right? Like, we have seen some epic games between Georgia and Alabama. One year, I mean, that SEC championship game, I think it was Stafford's last year. It came down to a final throw, or Murray, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it was a great SEC championship game. They came up 3 yards short of beating Bama in that thing. And I think that was 20. Was that 2012?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, right. Because I remember seeing a graphic of the bulldog and the elephant getting ready to box and looking at the little Notre Dame thing and say, "One of us will be right with you," right? Like it was a phenomenal graphic. But we knew whichever one of them was going to make it was going to beat the crap out of Notre Dame. So and that was never in question. Right, I believe Georgia would have beat Notre Dame that year just as badly as Bama did. Those teams were extremely talented, So fellas, I'm gonna take this time right here in closing to throw a little bit of shade at some other Auburn creators who are sunshine pumping. Right, like if you're out here, like, listen, if you're watching the War Report right now. You're watching the War Report right now. You don't tune into us for the sunshine, right? You don't tune into us because we're going to tell you why Auburn's going to win and why Gus's are going to overcome. Listen, screw that, right? You listen to us for the real, right? You listen to us for the real because these are the things that fans are thinking, right?
Right.
Right. Listen, we're not a stat show. We're not an analysis show. We're a fan show. Right. So all these people out here pretending with their bias, right, that they know why Auburn's going to win the game. Screw that. We deal in reality, right? And the cognitive dissonance that a lot of fans have because of all the sunshine pumping about what our team is not, right, is what keeps these bad coaches around longer than where they should be. Right. We as a fan base need to demand more, right, when we know we can achieve more. That's all I'm saying. So if you watch the War Report, you turn every week, we're going to give you the honest idea of like what our team should be, right? And what they can be. But all the sunshine pumping, man, like I'm just like, listen, like I thought that I thought that 5-5 was a reality this season after South Carolina. I did. And I'm not going to be far off that prediction if we lose next week. I heard somebody, you know, somewhere say 7-3, right? And I'm like, that's real hopeful. Right? Like, listen, 7-3 was real hopeful for me, right? I was just like, I hope 7-3, but where do y'all see 7-3? And then after we got that beat down from Bama, I'm like, all right, like I know we want to pretend that we can beat Texas A&M, and we may pull it off. We may pull it off, right? But I don't see it. We're more likely to lose that game right now than we are to win it. So again, no sunshine pumping over here. At the end of the day, the only way we get better is if we demand better. And they are demanding it at Georgia and Bama. And listen, man, LSU's not going to deal with all this mediocrity for very long. Orgeron just won a national title, but I bet you his ass will be out in 2-3 years if he keeps this up.
Right.
They're not going to stick with him for 9.
That's a fact.
They ain't going to stick with him for 9, right? You know what I mean? Listen, Mark Richt had one of the longest tenures in college football history at Georgia. And it finally, and listen, they were in the conversation every year. They just couldn't get over the Bama hump under Richt. Arguably, Kirby Smart hasn't gotten over it either, right?
No, he hasn't.
Right? I mean, even though he did beat them and they did face off again in probably what was the best national title game I've ever seen, right? But like, I'm just saying, if we want to, I'm not saying we got to win every year. We don't have to win every year, right? But in the years where we have championship level defense, we need to be in the conversation. Last year, we weren't in the conversation because we were so inept offensively.
With an offensive guru as our head coach.
Yeah, right. And we're supposed to be an offensive football team. Listen, F that, right? That's all I'm saying. So again, you know, I watched some other shows out here and I hear what they're saying. I really do, right? And bending stats to fit your reality, to me, is not a good message to put out to fans. It's just not, right? Like, I think the stats are what they are. They don't lie. And football has become very statistical, which is why you see a lot of teams going for it on 4th down or going for the 2-point conversions, right? Like, the stats say that there's a higher percentage play. That's not conventional thinking in football, but we're seeing that at the pro level. It's starting to leak its way into college. And all I'm saying is, when you look at these stats, Gus is a below average coach. Bo Nix is an average quarterback at best. And we are only consistent at being inconsistent. That's it. I'm done. Rant over.
All right. Well, may the Lord watch between me and thee while we're absent from one
No way I
another.
can drop this.
Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel for your daily dose of clouds and no sunshine with a chance of rain on the war report. No, listen, we're going to give it to you real every single time. Make sure you're telling your people to come through. If you want to talk about real things, facts over feelings every single show
Facts
here.
over
Listen.
feelings.
Twitter and Instagram, we are the War Report. On TikTok, TW Report. We will be back at you Saturday morning for a pregame show to talk about how we can figure out what the keys to this game is going to be and who are the people who need to show up in order for us to get this W. Hopefully, we will see you all on Saturday for all of the stuff that we've got going on, pregame, halftime, postgame. Until then, as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.